I make these videos, like, I'm going to show you how to do this, I'm going to show you how to make this in this video, as you may already know, I'm going to show you how to make a belt. And then, as I get into it, and I'm so deep into this project, that I realize I probably should have taken another route. Hello. So we are not going to bother with drafting any pattern pieces today, and that's because I'm just going to cut out a basic shape out of this white fabric here, and I'll tell you how to do that. So in this video, we're just going to be doing the belt and not doing the side drops. That'll be in a different video. I might have already explained that, but keep in mind that side drops will be attached to the belt. For now, I measured their waist. It was 29 inches, so I'm going to make the belt 28 inches in order to give room for the belt to be able to cinch tight onto their body. And of course, with seam allowance, that just gives us 29. So it'll be 29 inches wide. And then I want the belt to be about 3 inches. I don't know call that wide or tall or whatever. 3 inches, so with seam allowance that'll be 4. So I'm going to cut out a big rectangle that's 29 inches by 4 inches, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces of that. Alright, now I have 2 pieces of 29 by 4 inch fabric cut out, and the next thing I'm going to do before doing any kind of assembly is put some applique on it. So I'll do that real quickly and then come back and give you some more instructions. All of the applique is done on one of the pieces for the belt. Don't know if I mentioned this before, but I feel like I should, that you don't do applique on both pieces because this piece is going to be like up against the skin. So we will set these aside and cut out a piece of interfacing. This here is super thick, double fusible interfacing. That means that there are little glue dots on both sides of it, and when you use the iron, it melts the glue to stick to the fabric. And I'm going to cut it out to size. We added seam allowance with these, but for the interfacing we're just going to cut out that exact size that we want, which is 28 by 3. Now here where lies the different option that I spoke of earlier. So what we're not going to do, but I'm going to give you a quick little example for those who chose the other method. You can attach these, so lay one on there, lay the other one on there, iron both sides, and of course you'd be lining up the edges. And with that being said, these edges would remain unfinished. So then you would just put binding over the edge with like bias tape or something. But that's not what we're going to do. I just thought I would talk about it for a moment for those who chose the other option of belt building. We're actually going to set this aside just for now. Take your belt pieces and put them together, right sides together. And then we're going to sew 3 of the 4 sides, basically create a tube. So we'll do this way, and this way, and the side where we leave open, start sewing a 1/2 inch away so that we're able to, tuck that in like we have in the other projects. Hi, Editing Chelsea here, just popping in at this very moment to let you know that I actually ran into a pretty big issue with this project around this point. Now I'm still going to show you the footage of me working through this issue, but I just want to pop in right here and give you some different options and give you all the information so that you don't have to go through what I did. So I'm about to show you how I sewed the three sides of the belt, the two long sides and the one short side, and that formed a tube. And then the next step was to take that interfacing that I cut and feed it into the tube. This is not my first time making a fabric belt, but this time it did not work out for me the way that it did before. And there are numerous reasons for that. The first reason, and I think the biggest reason, is the type of material that I was using this time around. In the past, I've used cotton, which allowed the interfacing to slide through. This time I was using a very stretchy, almost knit type of fabric that was really grabbing at the glue dots and would not allow the interfacing to slide in between the layers. In addition to the type of material that I was using, I think in the past I also cut the interfacing not quite as wide. I said that I wanted the end result of the belt to be 3 inches wide. I should have cut it to be about 2.5 inches wide, maybe even 2.25. In addition to that, the past belts that I've made, I filled in that space between the interfacing and the edge of the seam with a cord, like a string, like a thick cord string. But I didn't want to do that this time around, and I feel like that's a little too advanced for the level of sewing that I'm comfortable teaching on the channel. So with all that being said, I have a few options for you. One, you can continue along with this path of sewing the two long sides and one side to create the tube and feed the interfacing through. If you're not using a stretchy, grabby material, and if you cut the interfacing not as wide, it could be done. My other option, if that doesn't work, or if you don't even want to try that, is to sew the two small sides and one long side instead of two long sides and one short side. Okay? And what you would do is, once those stitches are sewn, and you take care of the seam allowance by clipping those corners and clipping the seam allowance shorter, then of course iron your material flat and slide that interfacing in through that open long edge. Once that interfacing is placed, then you can go ahead and follow the same instructions that I give later on in the video for closing the last side. In this video, you see me closing up the short side. If you chose this alternative method, then you'd be closing the long side, which basically you're taking the two layers of material, folding them in on each other, and then top stitching over that. So again, I'm going to go ahead and show you the footage of what I did. Just be mindful that I kind of messed up a little bit, and I'm really sorry about that. After your corners are clipped and your seam allowance is trimmed, now we get to feed it through and basically turn this thing right side out. For the corners, a few tricks I have: take something long and skinny. I have a skewer here. You could also use like a wooden dowel. Something like a pen or pencil might not work depending on how wide your belt is, just because you're not going to be able to really fit your hand in there a whole lot. So I'm going to use this. Another trick I have, if you don't have any access to things like a skewer or whatever, so you can take a pin and sort of dig that corner out with it. Now you can take this to the ironing board just to flatten this out, but we're going to be doing that in a moment anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and put the interfacing inside first, and then I'll go ahead and iron and fuse the interfacing to the belt. All right, an excruciatingly amount of time later, I finally have the interfacing inside of the belt. Before I iron it, I'm going to go ahead and close off this end here. So just like we did in other projects, we're just going to bend this in, okay, and then bend the other side in, and then we will stitch it shut. Now that that seam looks like this, go ahead and iron the fabric to the fusible interfacing. Here we are in the home stretch of the belt. Is just placing some eyelets in order for it to be a corset closure. So I have, spilling out of the box are these eyelets, little eyelet kit that has the tools with it. I do have one of these, but I can't find the thing to fit it. But what I'm doing is I'm not being too crazy about like where to measure, and I think 3 eyelets will work. I think 2 is too little, so I'm just poking the hole with an awl and working it through. And then you might have to take some little scissors and sort of puncture it more and maybe clip off just little bits of the interfacing in order to make a hole not wide enough to fit one of these. Basically, you want to have to like squeeze this through, but essentially wide enough so that it's possible to squeeze this through, and then you crush it and it remains stuck there. So yeah.